You're in your home when you feel the first tremor. It's California. Earthquakes aren't unheard of. The tremors continue with growing ferocity. The screams and wails grow louder and you begin to hear explosions. Is this the big one? You rush outside to notice the world has taken on a grainier quality, and that the epicenter of the violent shaking is from the old quarry. A smile spreads across your face, and you nod your head back and forth knowingly. Gee, is it Sunday already? You lazily turn around and begin heading back inside. You hear a final terrible explosion in the distance, and the triumphant cheers of 5 suspiciously young voices. Your neighbor John is always busy on Mondays. He's the foreman of a special construction team whose only job is to replace the orange and white zebra-striped smokestack that the Dragon Zord uses to brush when he wakes up. Returning to your couch, you pick up your bowl of popcorn. Extra salt, of course. The missus has been hounding you about eating healthy again, but everyone deserves a little cheat day. You resume scrolling through some of Netflix's latest releases. Yep. Just another Sunday in Angel Grove. Wait, what? Power Rangers is an iconic children's franchise which has spanned over 25 years. But when you start taking the premises of the show to their logical conclusions, there are some uncomfortable things you start to notice. So today, let's talk about the disturbing implications of the Power Rangers universe. So, an ancient and supremely powerful space witch has just been released from her space prison.
After 10,000 years, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth!
A wizard, who takes the form of a giant blue floating head, needs to find a new generation of heroes to defend humanity.
Show me what you got!
Does he recruit a bunch of Navy SEALs? Delta Force? Hillbilly sheriffs? Nope. Zordon demands his loyal robot helper Alpha 5 recruit 5 members of the most dangerous subset of humanity.
Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
Teenagers with attitude. He gives them powered armor, which looks suspiciously like spandex.
Because nothing says covert like bright red, yellow, and blue spandex.
That is not spandex!
As well as giant mother dinosaur robots. Of course, the makers of Power Rangers and its ancestor Super Sentai series rely on suspension of disbelief or the naivety of its young audience, so they don't have to explore why living in the world of Power Rangers would be a goddamned existential and moral nightmare. But they didn't foresee overly obsessive fans like me and my ilk dissecting what was meant to be an innocent merchandising cash grab.
We're in the money, we're in the money. We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. We're in the money, the sky is sunny. Oh man, depression, you are through, you done us wrong. Oh, we never see headline about red line today. And
Let's start with the elephant in the room. Living in the Power Rangers universe would suck for a very specific reason. Constant monster attacks. We kind of laugh it off, but people need to realize that every monster attack is kind of like, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully, because there are certain analogies I could use that would be more appropriate, but would get me downvoted like crazy. It's like extremely devastating natural disasters, or even living in an active war zone. Many of you know that I live in a place prone to earthquakes and typhoons. But big earthquakes and severely damaging typhoons are fairly rare. In the Power Rangers universe, horrific monster attacks, which undoubtedly cause a massive loss of life, happen about once a week. Buildings are being destroyed. Massive amounts of infrastructure are torn up regularly. Hell, the Dragon Zord seems to destroy this poor smokestack on a weekly basis, just for kicks. Or maybe he's just an ardent environmentalist. Hashtag Tesla Zord, hashtag Green Ranger goes green. what would that life even be for the citizens of Angel Grove? In reality, you'd be constantly paranoid you're going to be assaulted by a bunch of gray goons, or your lipstick is going to be turned into some monster by a magical space witch whose lips don't match her dialogue.
I can't believe they made us thing! Out of my way!
That level of paranoia would drive anyone a little nutty. At the very least, I would be hightailing it out of Angel Grove fast. But what about the people who can't afford to uproot their entire lives and evacuate from this living hell? Well, I mean, you gotta imagine suicide would become a big issue. There would be politicians wanting to try and appease Rita. There would be cults devoted to the actual magical space witch.
Na 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 leader. Na 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 leader. Na 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 leader. Na 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 leader. Leader.
Leader!
And as the rich evacuated, you'd probably see a reverse gentrification of Angel Grove. What about life as a ranger? The Boom comics try to address a hanging issue, which is how the Rangers balance being heroes and their regular lives. They're constantly exhausted and just trying to keep some semblance of normalcy going. Jason is always behind in schoolwork and often spends his off time monitoring for potential attack. Billy refuses to demorph, instead choosing to project a hologram of his clothing over his ranger suit, because for the first time in his life, he feels empowered. Next issue. I'm going to replay this scene for you, and I really want you to think about one of the giant, glaring moral issues that Power Rangers has spent decades sticking its head in the sand about.
Alpha, Rita's escape. Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
Did you figure it out yet? Watch it one more time.
Alpha, Rita's escape. Recruit a team of teenagers with
Now, teenager obviously runs the age spectrum from 13 to 19. But thanks to the wonderful Boom Comics run of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Go Go Power Rangers, they established that during their first year as heroes, the Rangers are 15 years old, roughly freshmen or sophomores in high school. So, yeah, they're child soldiers. That means this is kind of morally equivalent to this. Metafictionally, the teenager angle works on several levels. First, it's believed that younger characters are easier for Power Rangers Key Demo to relate. Second, young actors are much easier to manipulate and exploit, which was certainly the case for much of Power Rangers broadcasting history. But I prefer to think about issues in-universe. Going back to the Boom comics, we're given an interesting take on why Zordon would choose a bunch of kids to fight actual monsters from space, instead of professional soldiers who have spent a life training, going into combat, and are, legally able to consent to face almost certain death. Zordon's reasoning was entirely practical. The Ranger powers depend very much on teamwork. An individual Ranger is superhumanly strong, but being a defender is objectively harder than mindlessly attacking. The Rangers are constrained by their need to prevent collateral damage, evacuate and protect survivors as necessary, while simultaneously fighting the enemy. In the comics, there was an incident in the 60s, around the time of the first moon landing, where a team of Rangers needed to be assembled to deal with an enemy who was about to be awoken from suspended animation on the moon. Zordon did, in fact, recruit 5 adults to serve as Rangers, and quickly deployed them to try and stop the enemy. They managed to do so, but 2 Rangers died in the process. What killed them? If you mean literally, one got crushed by a giant rock, and the other asphyxiated in the cold vacuum of space. But metaphorically speaking, they died because of bad teamwork. In-universe, the issue is that while adults tend to be more intelligent and possess the savvy that comes with life experience, they also tend to be aware of themselves. They have one of the most detrimental traits to teamwork. Adults tend to have ego. Not that teenagers aren't egotistical, but in this universe at least, the 60s Rangers wouldn't follow orders. They allowed their personal, political, and even national identities to override the unifying goal of killing the bad guy. It was on that tragic day that Zordon added a fundamental truth to his Ranger handbook. Teamwork makes the dream work. Teenagers, however, despite their emotional ups and downs, also really just want to fit in.
I know it's kind of a weird time, but I was just wondering, what is going to happen to us on Monday when we're all together again? I mean, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I? No. So on Monday, what happens?
They're more easily malleable, not only to authority, but to peer pressure. If Zordon can account for his teenagers being relatively good people, the chances that they'll work as a cohesive unit is much higher. It's when we start discussing the morality of Zordon's actions where we get into a little bit of sticky territory. As mentioned, kids can't consent to being sent into battle. They're too easy to manipulate and can't actually understand the consequences of their choices. Zordon was promising them the chance to be superheroes and to save the world. It's every kid's dream, but it's not so cut and dry. As I asked in my Halo videos, to what lengths are we willing to go when the very survival of our world is at stake? If Zordon used adults who were proven to be unreliable as Rangers, and they screwed up and the powers or Zords were damaged or destroyed, he will have lost Earth's only defense against the, and let me again state, monsters from space. Zordon rolled the dice with an educated guess, having learned a very important lesson from the tragic loss of 2 previous Rangers. What choice did he have? Some of you say, well, he should have tried harder to find adults who meet the psychological profile conducive to teamwork, which I think is a very fair point. Allow me to pose a hypothetical, because I very much want you to understand Zordon's quandary. If the entirety of humanity were wiped out except for children under the age of 15, but enough of them so that they could keep humanity going should they survive, is it morally wrong for those kids to take up arms to defend themselves? What if there were a single elderly person still alive? Should the children wheel that person out to the front lines and let him be killed before they are allowed to begin fighting? There's no doubt that being a child soldier in the real world is a tragic and preventable situation. But we're not facing a threat on a scale close to what Zordon was trying to stop. Even though most of us have wanted to be Power Rangers, I think that we can all admit that the moral issues and constant threat would make living in that world a living hell. So, have I destroyed your childhood yet? Hey Rangers, thanks for tuning in for episode 10 of Let's Talk About. Thank you to all my subs and viewers for your support so far. We're a small community right now, but you guys are still great. So thank you so much. What do you guys think of life in the Power Rangers universe? Is there another topic you'd like for me to cover? Feel free to drop your thoughts or requests down below in the comments, and I'll see what I can do for you. You can also catch me on Twitter at NerdTalkDan. If you're liking what I'm giving, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, then you should hit that like and subscribe button, and maybe that bell icon, but don't smash them. That seems a bit much. Have a good day, nerds. May the power protect you.